Straighter freeze! General Systems Engineer Second-Rate Triv declared happily, throwing down a set of 6 cards to the swearing of her opponents. Unless anyone can beat that, I believe the pod goes to me, she says, reaching forward. Not so fast. Warrant Officer Siava declared. Hand of 7-7. Triv joined the swearing this time, the date of an infamous coup attempt beating her hand easily. I swear, you have to have cards up your sleeves. Warrant Officer Siava raised an eyebrow and looked down at her husband beat a top. Triv flipped her opponent off before standing up. Right, I've got to head out. You and your Marines want me to pass anything to the other WO? Siava waved Triv off. We're good. Make sure she's actually working on that research paper she says she's doing and not just schlicking it to whatever the courier ship brought yesterday. Triv nodded. Saw a ship jump in when I was out fixing the pipes, so she might be busy with that. I'll check up on her though. You sure you don't need anything? The 5 Marines and 1 warrant officer sitting in the ready room shook their heads. They haven't had to do anything in the last 3 months, and they were happy to keep that trend up. Card games and PT were an excellent way to pass the time. If there was one constant in the life of a patrol sailor, it was maintenance, watch, and boredom. Boredom could be alleviated through use of the common data core the patrol ship used to contain all the media its sailors acquired, legally or otherwise, but during shifts it was frowned upon to have an active connection to that core. However, boredom always remained. Standing watch was the first most common feature in a patrol sailor's life other than sleeping, and sometimes more common than that. Electricians would watch electrical panels, bridge crews would make sure they weren't going to crash into anything, and pilots sat in their interceptors during FTL. Outside of FTL, the pilots actually got to fly around, but when underway, they had to make do sitting inside their coffins. At least they got to keep the canopy up and chat with the deck crews. Look, I'm just saying, you get to sit in that nice, beautiful piece of technology, while I have to lay strapped to a crash couch plugged into a terminal for 3 hours, watching dials move and waiting for something to break, Venturesforth complained. I can't even start moving and working with the dials and wrenches. No, when I'm on Chenenge watch, I have to guide and prepare, she scoffed. I know Chenge wants to be trained up to replace her, but this is ridiculous. Cookie turned his head from his tablet and the book inside to look at the cybernetic woman. Hey, at least you're used to this. When we were in the Navy, we were pilots, officers, the special class. We didn't have to stand watch and instead were just doing flight hours. Along with any duties assigned to us, Bill chimed in from the back, tracing the etchings and symbols on Venturesforth's arm. The Irishwoman's flight suit included a bracer covered in similar symbols, along with a better wrist computer after meeting with Foster's Grove. Along with any other duties assigned to us, yeah, Cookie replied. At least we don't have to do paint and chip detail anymore. We didn't, Bill commented. We were officers, remember? Hey, I don't stop you from telling your drinking stories. You don't stop me from complaining about made-up stuff. I miss being a full officer. Venturesforth spoke up after watching the back and forth. Right. I'm not even going to try and touch that. I mostly came to tell you we're dropping out of FDL in 30, so you'll probably get some flight hours in. Last chance to stand up and stretch before crash harness is called. Milk nodded. Thanks for the heads up, Forth. God, sitting in here without some kind of velocity, crouching in places that I didn't know could cramp. I'm just glad for the leg room, Cookie retorted, shifting to work his muscles before flight. The fleet came out of phase as a pack, warp bubbles overlapping and synchronized to ensure nobody got lost on a misjump. 2 patrol carriers and a small merchant fleet appeared where previously there was only void and stars. Within an instant, 8 interceptors took to the vacuum, soaring around the fleet in a mad whirl before forming up in a helix orbit around the tightly packed ships. And then within minutes there was another flash of phase, another fleet entering the system. Breaker! The captain of the 2nd patrol carrier called out. Her ship was taking the lead position, and so their sensors cleared off the phase disruption first. 5 bogies, 1 frigate weight, 2 cargo weight, 2 carrier weight. The 2 patrol carriers warmed up their weapons, shaking off jump static in order to flood circuits and capacitors with power. Confirmed, Rochelle replied, standing on her bridge. Run off flight, move forward and investigate. Weapons tight. We're in periphery skies. Milk looked up from her console, after confirming the flight plan from Runoff 1, their old drill instructors. Cookie, we're taking the left flank. Helix forward and move. Confirmed, Cookie replied. They mentioned carriers. We're going to be outnumbered if those are aerodynes instead of shuttles. Well, we can be sure we've got the better tech, Milk retorted, letting the G-forces massage her muscles as the hyper-advanced space fighter took off through the void to take a Vanguard position. We just did what? Captain Dasua Tetsovra of the contract-closed mercenary frigate screamed at her bridge crew after spitting half her mug of Stimcaf 7 onto the luckily splash-proofed console in front of her. We've come out facing an Imperial convoy, her sensor tech reported. And I suppose you want a company share for stationing in the office. Yes, I see that. Do we have weapons up? Are we deploying fighters? Are we being vaguely aggressive? The gunnery tech looked back at her. Barely any debt on her contract. A fresh hire and a risky one if she decided to jump ship for another company. Should we? No! Dasua Tetsovra yelled out. In fact, do the exact opposite. Broadcast to all forces to stand down. We are not getting into a fight with any Imperial forces we're not being paid to. Always come off worse than we think. Radio's ready for wide broadcast, and I flashed our neutral IFF. The radio tech, who had family debt tying her to this company, and was heavily experienced for it, reported. 2 patrol carriers identified. One of their flights is moving ahead to the Vanguard position, for weapons load. Anyone we know? Captain Tetsovra asked before waving a hand. Never mind, we'll find out in a moment. They then clicked on the radio. This is Captain Dasua Tetsovra of the contract-closed mercenary frigate of the Stone Rings Mercenary Group. We are registered in the Professional Soldiers Liaison Department. We have no quarrel. I repeat, no quarrel with any of the forces before us. Does anyone copy this call? Well, that makes this significantly easier, Rochelle thought to herself. Through the near-instant communications of the laser mic, she and the other captain had confirmed that the former fleet admiral was taking the lead, and so she clicked on her own radio to reply. This is Patrol Carrier into harm's way, flashing IFF now, and Patrol Carrier Marathon Run also flashing IFF. We have no quarrel with the Stone Rings Mercenary Company either. Orient yourself to the system star and move 12 AU nav spinward, and we shall do the same anti-spinward. We can converse once we have movement room. 12 AUN spinward for us, confirmed. Moving now. The Nigro's voice hitched as something processed. Wait, am I speaking with Fleet Admiral Rochelle? You are, Captain Rochelle replied. Although I am now Captain Rochelle, I have been transferred to patrol. The night crew captain of the opposing vessel shouted something at someone in the cockpit, not realizing she was still broadcasting. See? Very good reason we didn't attack her. Rochelle remained stoic, even as the urge to roll her synthetic eyes rose to near critical levels. If there are no other communications, let us execute the navigation and put this encounter behind us. Let's. Cookie pulled his helmet off and wiped away the sweat pooling at his hairline. With his adrenaline now fading, he could finally focus again, instead of running purely off instinct and training. The pair set their interceptor down in their cradle, their wingmate doing the same across from them. Doctrine said that when out of combat or tasking, only half a wing of interceptors should be deployed at a time to reduce fatigue and increase combat flexibility. For Milk and Cookie, that meant they could breathe some slightly less recycled air after the giant scare from a goddamn war fleet jumping on top of them. There was the sound of a thud and retching as their opposite number disembarked. Pilots Griogil and Brekaz were country girls from some agri-world in the Imperial Heartland. During their introduction flights, they claimed they were able to fly any civilian aerodyne shuttle in existence, and decided to join patrol as a jumping point to join the Imperial Spear Fighters. You alive there, Griogil? Milk called, hopping down to go check on the pair. I think... Cookie heard another retching sound as the green pilot threw up again. Oh, goddesses, above that was... I thought we were going to... Cookie jumped out of the cockpit at that, clipping his flight helmet to his belt, and walking over to their sister interceptor, kneeling down next to Griogil. But we didn't, and that's what's important, he said, gently placing a hand on the woman's shoulder. Come on, stand up. Let's get you to the mess and get some food and water in you. He looked up as Brekaz, Griogil's backseater, jumped down from finishing up post-flight checks, and took the shaking shore's arm. I've got this. Thank you, Cookie. No problem. Take care of her. It's always bad, your first ambush. Brekaz laughed. I probably should make a joke here, but... No, thank you. We'll be ready when it's our shift. Cookie stood up to stand shoulder to shoulder with Milk. Neither of them considered themselves old, but they were both getting closer to 50 human years old. With how confusing the years had been, it was hard figuring out exactly how old the pair were due to shield calendars not measuring time right. But when they saw things like this, children throwing up of their first combat drop, even though nobody died. "We're veterans, aren't we?" Milk asked solemnly. "Veterans of the conquest of Earth. We're not some fresh rookies or seasoned pilots. We're straight-up experienced veterans." "We're getting older," Cookie replied. "How long has it been? Have we lost track? I wasn't able to wind my watch during boot camp, so I don't know how much is off." "A man got smashed during a training exercise," Milk replied. I think it's the lack of constraints that gets me." Cookie turns to look at his friend, his co-pilot, his sister. "I know what you mean. I keep looking for the Big Dipper, but there's... nothing?" "Nothing." "Every time we jump, I always wonder, are we the first humans to be out this far? Are we the furthest from home? And then I look out the window, check the charts, and the system is just mundane. We're in awe over a highway system. I mean, the highway system is pretty fucking cool, to be honest." Milk flipped him off. "Right," Cookie continued. "I think we need to make a new standard thing. Something to mark our calendars by." "Fuck it. It's probably October, right?" 1 in 12 chance," Cookie replied with a shrug. Milk nodded, scrolling through her wrist tablet for a moment. "Grab Slivers and Ventures. We're celebrating a birthday." Cookie caught on and began to smile. "Whose?" he asked, playing along. "Why, the US Navy's, of course." Cookie laughed and walked off, going to fetch the cyborg and the snake. Ventures 4 walked towards the corner of the mess hall after finishing up her shift. Already, the rest of her friends and Milk were sitting there chatting about... something. But what they were talking about was secondary to what she saw on the table. It was a cake. "Why do you have a cake?" the Gearshaw spoke up, sitting next to Milk. "How do you have a cake?" "I baked 2, and broke the messed off with one of them," Milk said, giving her a kiss on the cheek. "Now we have a story to tell you." "A story about our home," Cookie replied. "About a navy we fought for, one we declared good. It was defeated, but it was still ours." This is not a memorial or eulogy, for its creed and ethics still lives on. And it lives on in us. Honor, courage, commitment. Cookie brought out a small bell and hit it with a spoon. A clear ring echoed around the mess hall, briefly penetrating the conversation. "And so we shall honor his life, by remembering his birth." "It is probably October 13th, Milk continued. "And so on this day, in 1775 year of our Lord, the United States Navy was founded by Act of Congress." Cookie brought down a knife and cut 4 slices from the cake. "May her memory live on, even after defeat by a superior power." "Anchors away," Milk cheered. "Anchors away," Cookie replied. "Anchors away," Slivers and Ventures 4 repeated, raising their plate of cake in salute. "Now dig in," Milk said, as Cookie greedily grabbed a fork. "And tell me what you think. It's a family recipe."